various other things like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube as well. But if you want to download the HAPS app, there's a link somewhere in the introduction to this. It's a good way to follow me and lots of other broadcasters. So what we're doing today, I was down here just having a walk this afternoon, just stretching my legs after a day at work, and noticed a couple of moths flying above the canopy of trees behind me, and indeed one in front of me. They're a species of moth known as the light orange underwing. Hello Fiona. She's quite a rare moth, not super rare, but it's nationally scarce. And we have a small colony here on Horsenden Hill. So I've been having a look for that. I thought I'd just briefly show you possibly the moth, but that's going to be quite a challenge. Hello Betty. Possibly the moth, but we'll see. We'll certainly show you how I look for them and explain what they are. So what I'll do, I'll turn the camera around, and what you can see here is a stand of aspen trees. And what you might occasionally make out, or I suspect it's a challenge on the broadcast, is an occasional small butterfly flitting around, small moth flitting around the top of those trees. And that's the species that we're talking about, the light orange underwing. I'll show you a picture of what it looks like. In an app on my iPad, produced by a fine company called Nature Guides, of which Fiona is the chief executive. Fiona, something like that, chief boss person anyway. They produce some wonderful apps, and this is a moth identification app. I'm muffled, am I? I'm not sure what I can do about that. Maybe I'm holding my hand over the microphone. Is that any better? So this is the moth we'd be looking for, light orange underwing. Archiaris nota, if you want the scientific name. And one of the challenges, it's a good app, yes, I was saying, Fiona is something, chief executive officer, is it Fiona? Boss anyway, of the company that produces this app. It's a very good app. I can heartily recommend it. I have no commercial interest in the company, so I can recommend it entirely free of any suggestion of impropriety. It's a very, very good app for identifying moths here in the United Kingdom. You get it on the App Store. And this is the species, but there is a very similar species, which is down here, called the orange underwing. As you can see, they're pretty similar. So how do you tell them apart? Well, in the males, there's a slight difference in the antennae. In the one we've got here, the antennae are feathered, and in the one down here, they're not. But in the females, there isn't that feature. But in both sexes, there is a difference, quite a subtle difference, in the pattern on the underside of the hind wing. And it's essentially where the dark bar on the outside goes, and whether it's interrupted on orange or constant on light orange. So that's what we're looking for. That's the species we're trying to find up the top here. And you're probably thinking, well, how do you go about identifying something like that up the top of the tree? Well, there's lots of things we can do. One of them is to spend a lot of time staring through binoculars and sit down long enough in the right posture that you can see one of those features. But even with fairly decent binoculars, it's a hard job to see either of those features. And the butterflies, the moths, spend most of their time flitting around. This one just went through there. I don't know if anybody saw it, but there was one. So other things that we do, we can stand around with a net and hope one comes down low enough. If one comes down low enough, you can swing the net and, well, in most cases, comically fail to catch it when it's me, but hopefully catch it in the net, put it into a pot, and then you can have a look at it close up and examine the features. But that's a challenge again with this species, because this is a species that mainly lives way up there. And my arms aren't long enough to reach that net to anything like the top of those trees. So in the main, I don't get much luck with the net. I've stood here on occasions for a couple of hours waiting for these. When we first discovered them and really wanted to lock down which species it was because we couldn't tell, myself and a friend spent 2 or 3 hours down here with net before we eventually managed to get one and identify it. So that's a method, but it's not very efficient. Another method, again not a particularly efficient method necessarily, is to use a camera with a ludicrously long lens on it. And what we would do with that, what I would do here is stand around where they fly and just focus on approximately the right area, lock the focus down and blast away as many pictures as I can, and hopefully in one of them it would be enough in focus or enough showing the relevant detail to be able to identify it. Probably about 1 in 100 pictures taken like that gives you an ID feature, and probably about none in 100 give you a picture you'd want to share with anyone or show or be proud of as a good bit of photographic art. But that's 3 of the main methods we use when we're trying to identify these species. And it's a rare species, it's nationally scarce, it's associated with aspen, which is the tree here, tree in the poplar family. I think it's Populus tremens, something like that. Something about trembling anyway. I suspect the moth is under-recorded because it's hard to see and hard to identify and hard to pick up. But we do have this colony here, we monitor it every year. So I just thought I'd briefly show people that on a broadcast here on HAPS. I'm not going to stay up long because I'm going to now go back to actually scanning the trees and trying to take some photographs myself, which I can't really do when I'm holding this phone. But just thought I'd share that because it was quite nice to see them, quite nice to get something. And possibly later this weekend I will do another broadcast of some moths from a survey I'm doing in the neighbouring site, Perryvale Wood. Depends what I get. It's not going to be the warmest of nights, but it's a convenient night for me to be down there. So I'm going to run some surveys, and if I get anything worth showing people sometime on Sunday, probably in the afternoon after I've done lots of other things, I'll be popping back on here on HAPS and showing you a few of the species we've got, some of the things that are starting to emerge as we move into spring. So have a good Friday, have a good weekend everyone, and I might see you.